Give me a second. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending. Thank you, we got it. Third time's a charm. In the Smithsonian National Anthropology Archive, there is a collection of nude portraits titled The Wichita Women. These images, taken by photographer William S. Soule, are of women from the Kiowa tribe living in Wichita during 1867. All of the women included in a series are shown and posed in a pinup style. The Wichita women are retained in the Smithsonian Archive as historical documents. More specifically, they are collected with images of landscapes, dwellings, and Native American families said to represent in the Indian Territory, one of the last unincorporated pieces of native land during Western expansionism in the 19th century. Here we see a side-by-side comparison of Soule's photographs and a Kiowa graphite drawing. In this figure, a female figure stands with her head turned in profile and her torso facing forward. Her hair is braided to one side, and she has red pigment applied to the apples of her cheeks and the part line in her hair. The woman grins as she looks up towards the right-hand corner of the image. In other tribal drawings of Kiowa women, there is a similar treatment of the female figure, revealing a uniformity between them and a conventionalization of the body that places emphasis on the clothing depicted. Kiowa self-representations make clear the communal value in well-crafted garments, and that female members of the tribe did not simply walk around topless as they are shown in Soule's photographs. However, despite these glaring differences in representations, Soule's images are treated as anthropological documents in the Smithsonian Archive. So where do Soule's ideas of the naked Native American woman come from? And why do we believe or need to believe that these ideas are true? In my presentation today, I will answer these questions and interrogate the social valence of Soule's images as souvenir objects, first collected by individuals and then by the Smithsonian Archive. So I'm making a claim here when I say that these images are souvenirs. By looking at the material form of Soule's photographs, I can determine they are souvenir objects for a variety of reasons. For one, the dimension of Soule's photographs intimate the type of camera he used within his own historic period to make his exposures. Here is an image of a carte de visite camera. Notice the 4 lenses on the face of the camera. These lenses are what made the carte de visite camera special because it allowed it to make multiple exposures simultaneously. By making multiple exposures at the same time, the final photograph was smaller than other photographs produced by cameras in this historic period. This type of camera also created a glass plate negative. This glass plate negative could be used repeatedly to create multiple exposures, lowering the cost of making the image and increasing the possible revenue a photographer could get from selling them. Here is an example of a carte de visite of Kicking Bird with an inscription on the verso that reads, "Kicking Bird, Kiowa chief, on the warpath now and making things unpleasant for us." Yeah, it shows us that the stories that we invest in souvenir objects and the experiences that we say they represent are what makes souvenirs valuable to us. As pure fetish objects, souvenirs have no use value outside of the value that we, as a society, invest in them. Souvenirs also provide a material vehicle for reportable experiences and significant or meaningful memories. So what are the stories invested or encoded in Soule souvenirs? And where did this idea or ideal of the naked Native American woman come from? To understand the content of Soule souvenirs, we need to look at the representation of nude Native American women in our own visual history. This piece, titled "The Rape of Boston or the Intolerable Acts," is from a newspaper etching circulated within the United States in 1775. This cartoon shows Lord North with the Boston Port Bill extending from a pocket, forcing T, representing the intolerable acts, down the throat of a partially draped Native female figure representing America. Her arms are restrained by Lord Mansfield, while Lord Sandwich, a notorious womanizer, restrains her feet and peeks up her skirt. Britannia, standing behind America, turns away and shields her face with her right hand. In this image, we see the topless Native American woman as a symbol for the 13 colonies under British rule in 1775. But this image also shows us something else. In this image, we also see sexual aggression as an articulation of governmental power. Lords from Britannia are shown as encroaching upon America's body in this rape scene to visualize the governmental control over lands and how Great Britain articulated its dominance. The nude Native American woman was highly circulated in early newspaper etchings and revolutionary posters. Here is an example of a revolutionary poster titled "The Female Combatants" from 1776. The figure on the left, Britannia, stands behind a banner with the words "For Obedience." The figure on the right, America, stands behind a banner with the words "For Liberty." Text bubbles curl out of their mouths. The English character says, "I'll force you into obedience, you rebellious slut," and the Native woman responds, "Liberty, liberty forever, mother, while I exist." Again, in this image, we see the 13 colonies represented by a topless Native American woman. Here, too, we see obedient or disobedient behavior associated with sexual permissiveness. In addition to being an expression of American liberty, the targeting of Native American women's bodies for sexual violence was a way to erase Native peoples from the landscape, with Englishman William Byrd in 1775 stating, "For if a Moor might be washed white in 3 generations, surely an Indian might have been blanched in 2. In both images, the availability of the Native American woman's sexuality for the 13 colonies is a symbol of American liberty. But the way that photographic souvenirs and newspaper etchings are consumed is different. In newspaper etchings, one perceives the ideal of the symbolic topless Native American figure. In Soul's photograph souvenirs, the symbolic idea of the topless Native American woman is grounded in a living body, positioning her as a physical opportunity to make the fantasy real through corporeal experience. Scholar Susan Stewart explains that souvenirs are narratives of interiority and authenticity, and that it is not a narrative of the object, but of the possessor. Souvenirs are also metonyms or stand-ins for actual experiences. When someone purchases a souvenir, they not only acquire an object, but they are also able to collect an experience that they didn't necessarily live. In this way, souvenirs speak to us about ourselves. They are intimate objects that allow us to authenticate ourselves through touch and sensuous experience. Therefore, Soul Souvenirs provided his clientele with a repeatable, intimate experience of topless Native American women on the frontier, perpetually available for encounters that evoked early revolutionary narratives of American power. During the time of their circulation, these narratives of American liberty and Native domestication, as represented through the sexually available Native American woman's body, cultivated a culture of sexual violence directed at Native women. When the Cherokee Nation was forcibly relocated to the Indian Territory, the site of Soul's portraits, women who spoke English and appeared partially assimilated were routinely targeted for gang rapes. Understanding this social context, Soul's pinup souvenirs take on a valence of successful conquest. In his analysis of erotic postcards made during the 1900s in Algeria, Malika Lula explains that these souvenirs are, quote, the metaphorical equivalent of trophies, of war booty, and that these souvenirs are these women have always been the dream and obsession of the total victor, that these raided bodies are the spoils of victory and the warrior's reward. And yet, Soul's souvenir carte de visites were acquired and preserved by the Smithsonian Anthropology Archive. While it is beyond the scope of this talk to ascribe intentions onto the Smithsonian Institution or to their collecting of images, What does matter is how the form of the photograph changes when consumed through the well-respected historical institution. In this image, we see the accession record for some of Soul's portraits from the Barker Museum that's held in the Smithsonian Archive. Notice that the Barker Museum rationalizes their nudity with the text that this clothing was the Kiowa's summer dress. And exactly, an action that both excuses the exploitation and applies scientific language to the visual, and changes how a viewer apprehends the content of the photograph. Hart and Edwards explained that, quote, museums do more than put objects in their proper place or make a place for them. Museums are active environments that ultimately shape histories through the preserving context that they themselves constitute, end quote. Because they have been injected into the museum's organizational rubric and they are consumed or treated differently, their form problematically changes from a souvenir to a historical document, a gesture that positions the fantasy ideal of the nude Native woman as a normalized and collectively verified experience. What is at stake when cultural institutions hold nationalist souvenirs in their collections? As part of their collections management, the Smithsonian places virtual surrogate images on their archive's website. This increases the proliferation of these images in our present day. This image is a screenshot of the Smithsonian's digital archive. Native American scholar Chris Finley argues that importantly for Native peoples, the conquest of Native America continues, and that museums of natural history are a cultural reservation where Native culture is saved and preserved for the satisfaction and maintenance of the settler colonial nation state. Soul's nationalist souvenirs are also available through a quick Google search, with each of the image's thumbnails tethered to a various virtual audience. The continued circulation of nationalist souvenir images, like Soul's, both in physical and virtual collections, continues to promote and naturalize American power through sexualized violence targeting Indigenous women in the Americas. Within the United States, Native American women are twice more likely than the natural average of any male or female from any ethnic group to be the target for a violent crime, with 60% of the perpetrators being white. And these are only the crimes that are being reported. In addition to higher rates of sexual violence, Indigenous women are also continuously disappearing and being murdered throughout the United States. The retention of these photographs continues to contribute to a culture that perpetuates this type of violence, naturalizes the topless Native American woman, historicizes the power dynamics that she symbolized, and the performance of American power through the sexual permissiveness of her body. Thank you.